This is Chris Elliott with another real estate quick tip. Today we're going to be talking about a tip for sellers of how to evaluate offers. So the scenario, the hypothetical situation we're in right now is you've got a property that's on the market and you've gotten multiple offers on the property and you're really just trying to weigh which offer is the best. So if you ever find yourself in this situation, good for you. But so a couple things to keep in mind. The first thing everybody always looks at and gets fixated at least in my experience, is the price. And granted, that's something to strongly consider. At the end of the day, when you're selling your house, your goal is always to make the most amount of money. But there are a couple other things to consider, and really what they boil down to is how likely is this transaction, how smooth will this transaction be, and how likely is this transaction to close. So a couple things that you want to look at. Obviously, we're going to start at price, but then the second biggest thing that we're going to look at is what type of financing does that buyer have, or do these multiple buyers have? The stronger the financing, the more money, the more skin in the game that buyer has as far as their financing go, the lower the loan to value, the better typically those buyers are to work with, just because they have a lot more solid financing. If somebody's got 20% down, or they're going to be putting 20% down, more than likely they're more qualified. They're going to be a lot easier to work with. A lot of those folks have already bought a home before. They've already gone through the transaction. They've got a little bit of money in their pocket. So if something comes up on the inspection report, they may want to see it get fixed, but it's not the end of the world if it doesn't, because they've got the money to be able to do that. Whereas, for example, if you get somebody with a little higher loan-to-value loan, not only is that a riskier deal because they're not as well qualified, they're not as financially strong, and that transaction can fall apart just on financing. But for a lot of these folks, if things come up on the inspection report, it is something they need to see done, because they're not going to have the money to do it post-closing. So might be a little harder to deal with once you get into a transaction. I've even had clients that have taken a little bit less for the house just because somebody had stronger financing and they knew it was going to be an easier deal. The other thing to consider also is who's the agent on the other side. If your listing agent has been in the business for any amount of time, they know who the players are. They've probably had some experience with some different agents, and they can tell you. They can also look at that agent's stats to see how much business they've done in the last 12 months. They haven't done too many transactions, more than likely they're going to be a little bit tougher agent to deal with, just because they haven't gone through as many transactions. They don't know how to kind of handle their clients, and they just haven't had the at-bats to have the experience to know how to navigate through transactions. Where if somebody's been, as a top producer, or it's somebody that I've done a deal with before, and I can tell them, hey, look, I've worked with this agent before, it's typically a pretty smooth ride. That is something to consider. So I hope that helps. I look forward to seeing you next week.